Hey all, welcome to a extremely deep dive on the mirroring between the Chariot and the Sun, and also the concept of TOV. Originally, I had created an untitled presentation. I actually tried to make a DaVinci Resolve thing as well, but that was extremely time consuming, and I realized that was more or less turning into a lecture, or just more or less that was creating a situation where the person whoever you are out there watching it, I hope I have some sort of ethereal connection happening on right this second. It was creating a thing where you were a passive observer. You're passive, and that's kind of hard in this content form. But the reality is what I'm aiming for is an active conversation. So I am looking forward to seeing comments, particularly on things that I didn't notice that are going to get pointed out. So we're going to ignore the entitled presentations, whatever not, by the way. I do want to give a quick heads up and a warning. I'm going to be talking about biblical references because they're part, and also Hindu references are part of this. But otherwise, what I'm going to try to do is just use the internet. I'm going to use paint. I'm going to use this little spinner over here that I think looks like both the Chariot and a sun simultaneously. I think I've managed that effect. And this cool background that I'm going to give the shout out to Chaos and Order. If you search Chariot in Reddit wallpapers, this is what comes up. And it just felt appropriate. It's even got that kind of like a little sun thing that seems very thematic and synchronistic. So really fast, who am I? So first of all, warning regarding the biblical references. I am not advocating religious practice in any way, shape, or form. I think if you look at the Rider-Waite tarot in particular, there's references, there's Hindu references, there's Greek references, there's Akkadian references, there's Babylonian references, and they all merge together to create this big picture of a greater whole. Sometime down the line, I actually want to talk about how it's interesting how similar ideas pop up in distant places. But anyway, I think to transcend particularly abusive religion, let me use a different sense. Actually, I got a picture for this. That's right. I got pictures in the background to help demonstrate this. I think a good way to transcend spirit, to transcend all of the garbage, is to kind of treat them as equal. So for example, if I say Zeus, or if I'm making reference to Zeus, I doubt there's the same level of triggering that happens around these. So I think when you can treat biblical references on the same table as like Greek references or any other reference, I think that suggests there's been its ownership. I guess that's what I'm trying to get down to. When I kind of hand over ownership of the concept, not to say that, oh, this is the truth, or this is the something that should be emphasized over something else. Hopefully. Okay. So now that I got that out of the way, however long we're into the video at this stage. So I'm going to use pictures. I'm going to use the internet. I'm going to use MS Paint. I'm going to use random pictures I made in the background to hopefully work through this. And we're going to go for that deep dive. If you guys have still stuck around, which hopefully you have. So who am I? Tsade Tarot. You guys have come to this webpage. I'm the author of Tarot Reflective Journey. This is an example of the reflective journey, by the way, and I'm trying to get the word out about how this works. I'm not sure I could say that I'm the inventor, mostly because it's something that's been in tarot in general this entire time. But this particular conversation is effectively an example of the reflective journey, which is if you look at the Chariot and you look at the sun, they reflect one another, and they have kind of deeper, secretive interrelation between one another. And it's like they are talking to one another. And that helps, first of all, differentiate their two energies. I think it also helps talk about how they're similar. There's going to be a whole lot of talking about how they're similar. And also that helps you learn tarot is what it comes down to. So let's go ahead, and with all of that referenced ahead of time, now that we're 4 minutes and 20 seconds, 420 YOLO into this, let's talk about the reflection. So I think it would be a little bit more obvious if the Chariot didn't have these odd sphinxes, however you say plural of sphinx. It's not something that comes up in everyday conversation. If you just had a black and white horse on the Chariot, it'd be like, oh, you got the one Chariot, you got the one horse rider, and then you got the two horses with the Chariot. And so, clearly these two cards are interrelated. Instead, it's a little bit sneakier. I do want to cover all of the sneaky little hidden mirrorings along these lines. But before we dive into it, I want to talk about how they interrelate to another concept called TOV, which This is Tav here in the background. If you're familiar with ancient Hebrew, as we all are, right? No, ancient Hebrew, the alphabet, their Aleph-Bet works somewhat different. By the way, big shout out to Jeff A. Benner on this website. It's a great resource for this sort of stuff. Effectively, ancient Hebrew, so our language, English, if you're listening to this and are a native English speaker, individual letters don't have any meaning. So the letter T, for example, is just t, it's a sound. Tav has a sound, but it also has a baseline meaning, like the individual letter means mark, sign, or signal. And if you look at this Middle Hebrew version of it in particular, you'll notice that the character here on the sun has a very, very similar sort of look to them. Nice little X there, kind of an X sitting right there. And then on top of it, if you look here at the center part at very similar, the identical position now that I look at it, an identical position on the chariot, you've got this little thing right here, which is known as a lingam, page version. Lingam, which coincidentally or uncoincidentally means sign, symbol, or mark. So Tav in Hebrew, sign, symbol, mark. Lingam in Sanskrit means sign, symbol, mark. Same sort of concept. And here you can see a lingam surrounded by a yoni. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that right. Uni base. They would usually be outside temples, is my understanding. And the lingam is somewhat representative of the male sexual organ, while the yoni is representative kind of the, you guys are lewd and already getting it, so I don't have to explain it to you. So the next question is like, okay, so what? Why is that there? That's an interesting coincidence. Say more. First of all, let's talk about Tav and where it shows up, excuse me, in biblical references in particular. So first of all, you've got Ezekiel 9, which is kind of as a side irony in Ezekiel to paint the picture. Now we're going to go to MS Paint. So you got little teeny ancient Israel over here, and then you have the giant Babylonian Empire, Babylon, which comes up in a lot of conversations around things. Babylon, oddly, in Ezekiel, they're saying, oh, well, Israel was worshiping Babylonian gods, and that's why they got conquered, which is kind of an odd thing. I won't address that right here. But effectively, when they're talking about, it sounds like a lot of descriptions, they're talking about the worship of Ishtar and also the worship of Dumuzi, Ishtar's consort. I just kind of scribbled that out, I know. And my handwriting's not exactly super legible, but just, bear with me. But point being, they're like, okay, they're worshiping foreign gods. That's why we got conquered and whatever. Maybe I'll give some opinions on what is more likely happening here in the future, but whatever. It's whatever for here. Right now, the important thing is that Tav takes center stage here in Ezekiel 9. So effectively, what is clear is big Babylon is going to crush and conquer little Israel. And that's coming down the pipe. And Ezekiel's prophesying it. He's saying, yep, that's what's going to happen. And he sees this vision. And in this vision, you have, I think I got a picture for this. Here we go. You've got this guy who's wearing, although this guy isn't wearing white linen like he should. He's wearing linen clothes, and he's walking around and he's putting Tavs. And you can see the Tavs here in the background of the forehead. He's putting it on the forehead of everybody who is righteous and is going to survive in the upcoming destruction, effectively. It's the survivors and the people that are going to theoretically make it all the way past. So conceptually here, Babylon, let's try that again. I'm just going to name it baby. Babylon conquers Israel. And theoretically, this is going to last some period of time, some stretch of time, which I'm drawing like that. And so it's like, okay, we're going to put a Tav on the people that are going to survive the destruction and maybe make it out to the other side, right? So it's the people who are preserved and going to make it and kind of conquer at the end of everything. So kind of, and you can kind of see where it's like the symbol of like preservation already, and the concept of like marking and signing here. This, by the way, all of these pictures are from Wikicommons. If you want to hunt them down yourself, I tried making a bibliography, but it got quite extensive. Anyway, so this symbol here, Babylon's coming. They're gonna crush everybody. They put a Tav on the head of people that are going to be preserved. And then that same symbolism is reutilized in Revelation. In fact, I'm guessing you guys probably are very, very familiar with the mark of the beast. So if we go to Revelation 19, the beast was captured, and you've got the false prophets, and everybody who received the mark of the beast, they were destroyed and they're thrown into the fiery lake of burning sulfur, right? That's Revelation 19. But actually, there's another mark that's earlier in Revelation 7, which is marks that go on. So here it is: do not harm the land or the sea, the trees, until we put a seal on the foreheads of the servants. So you have kind of a similar concept going on in Revelation, where there's a reuse of the Ezekiel imagery, where there's destruction coming at the hands of Babylon. So except here we've got, so instead of like teeny Israel, whatever, here it's like you've got all of the good people and a much more massive metaphorical Babylon, in quotes. Need to work out a better way to, maybe I should do the text, whatever. I will continue with the concept. So you have now the metaphorical Babylon, and here the beast. And then you have more of a metaphorical Israel, because I think this is co-opted by Christians, effectively saying like, we are Israel in essence. And this is, again, me not advocating Christianity, anything along those lines. But point being, that same imagery is reused, and the concept of Tav is reused in both instances. Now, how is this relevant to what we're talking about? So if you go to Revelation 19 and you don't focus on this bit and you instead focus on this bit, you'll find the template for the sun card, which is, I saw on the heaven standing there before me was a white horse, whose rider is called Faithful and True. With justice he wages war, and his eyes were like I guess the eyes aren't exactly like a blazing fire, but you have, this is my favorite bit actually. On his head, I think in different translations, it's a crown of many crowns. And here we got a crown of flowers. And he's got a name written on him that nobody knows but himself. He's dressed in a robe. Oh, here's the dipped robe. Instead, it's a red flag of revolution here. And the armies of heaven are following him. So more typical vision is something along these lines. Let me see if I got another one. Here's like Christ coming back on these are much more of the destructive images from Revelation 19. But this is a child. It's a young child being born. And it's a messianic sort of concept. In fact, if you'll notice, the sun is 19, and we got Revelation 19 as well. That'll be the end of the biblical references for people that can't stomach them, by the way. Let's go ahead and get rid of Google for right this second as well. And let's instead, so we got Revelation 19, concept of like a Messiah coming back, theoretically maybe Christ coming back in the sun card. And you can kind of see how that's linked to the meaning of the sun with all of the joy and all of the, just a new conquering of everything. It's like, and you can see how that's related to Tav as well. It's like we made it. We're in the future world that's created, that's absolutely beautiful and everything's perfect. And we were on the right, we're on the correct side of everything. And now here we are standing triumphant over all the enemies of whoever was correct, and so on and so forth, which isn't anything I honestly want to advocate or dive into. But so that template of the sun, though, kind of riffing against that, instead of a violent messianic figure, we've got a small child. We've got still the crown of many crowns, although it's flower crowns, which is adorable. I think that's my favorite bit, honestly. And you've got, rather than blood-soaked robes, you've got the red flag revolution coming forward, which I guess you could argue is still blood-soaked robes, as far as understanding. So now let's talk about the template of the chariot instead. Because we talked enough about the sun, we got a concept of where it's coming from. Let's talk about the chariot a little bit more and its template. So its original template you got to go all the way back to ancient Greece, and you got to talk about Plato and and his writings on Phaedrus. A lot of people talk about it as they focus on Phaedrus as the metaphor. They look at the metaphor of the soul that comes out of Phaedrus, which I'll talk about here as well. It's actually on love, and honestly, an aggressive form of love. I do recommend reading it because it has tarot involved, but I will say it's pretty, at times it's graphic and you're like, wow, Greek culture was really messed up actually. But in Phaedrus, Plato creates this image, the same sort of template we're going to lay out. He has a chariot, a charioteer, and he's actually, I need to pull back even further. Plato is in Greek culture. In Greek culture, you have the concept of the gods, and the gods have their own chariots, actually. And that's kind of where he's getting that concept from. So here is Artemis on her chariot, and she's being led by two does, I believe. My favorite, actually, this one's hard to see, is you got Juno. And here you can see, if you look here in the background, you can see, let me go ahead and make it even larger. You can see the peacocks. So here's Juno coming down, and she's got her peacock-led chariot, which is adorable. I think that's my favorite one. I just love the picture of Hera running around from Olympus and kind of the heavens, riding on a peacock-led chariot. I just think that's absolutely adorable. But there are other examples. Usually you'll have a Greek god and their symbol animal effectively in front, depending on which. So it's usually something symbolic of their character. Like, for example, I believe like Poseidon's hippogriffs or something like that, which is like, or hippos, some sea animal. Anyway, so in the sky, in the heavens, the gods, they've got their perfect chariots. But for all the rest of us, we have our imperfect chariot. And with the imperfect chariot, we've got our black horse. And of course, we got our white horse. And so with that symbol, the concept is the white horse is the drive towards everything that is good and best. And the black horse is the drive towards what is pleasurable. And as a result, the white horse is good. We're fine with that white horse. The white horse is going to do exactly what it's supposed to. Do I have the picture? That's the wrong picture. I think somewhere in the background here, I've got a good one for this. There's that one. That's not as good. That's another judgment picture. Somewhere in here, give me a half second or skip ahead on the little whatnot curve. Is that, I swear to God, that one keeps popping up and that's the one I want to click. There it is. We got it. Look at this one. Look at that. Anyway, you got the where was I? Black horse. You got the black horse, the white horse. So chariot racing was a very, very dangerous thing. It was a very, very popular profession. In fact, the richest. So you think about how wealthy athletes are today. The wealthiest athlete was they figure by measurement, the wealthiest athlete in the world was a charioteer, they suspect. It was very lucrative. It was very, it was very prestigious, but also it was very, very dangerous because there were a lot of fatalities, there were a lot of serious injuries. It was very difficult to keep your horses under control because you need to keep them in sync. You need to keep them as part of a team. You need to balance it well, and you need to just push it just right effectively. I don't know all the ins and outs of charioteering, but Plato makes it seem like it's a fairly difficult thing. Here's another picture. I feel like this is a beautiful chariot race, although this is more like white horses with a black horse versus all black horses running around the circles here. But anyway, Plato's image. So we got our flawed horses. We're stuck to the ground rather than the air. The white horse, again, everything good. The black horse, everything bad. And then we look at the actual chariot card and we expect to see something similar, right? Except instead, we've got mixed colors. And more than that, we've got mixed genders, as you can see. By the way, I will say, if you're enjoying this and you enjoy this conversation, your mind ends up being blown as a part of this, please do me a favor and share this in the communities you're part of. I think this is going to be a challenge to get past the YouTube algorithm, because I'm going to share, obviously with the images I've shared and I'm sharing, I don't want to censor anything, and I'm not looking to make money off YouTube ad revenue, I will say. So to remain uncensored, I will need your assistance. But so that's where I'll leave that out. So more than like and subscribe, please share this in communities where you're part of and are interested in these sort of discussions, mostly to get the word out and also to just get more eyes and have kind of a larger, more full conversation. I guess that's what I'm looking for. Anyway, mixed gender and mixed color, which works really well when you consider the other reference here, which is instead of horses, we've got sphinxes. And if you're there are different cultures that had sphinxes. Egyptians very famous for having sphinxes. Persians very famous for having sphinxes. But really the most famous sphinx, and I think in Western society when we're talking about sphinxes, we're thinking of good old Oedipus. Here we got Oedipus and the Sphinx, speaking of YouTube algorithm issues. Oedipus and the Sphinx it's a famous story. So what people I think miss is actually Oedipus originally came from plays. There were 3 plays. It was Oedipus Rex, Oedipus at Colonus, and Antigone being his daughter. And so it wasn't just one play, it was a collection of plays that was put into a competition and ended up winning. But Oedipus and the Sphinx, as the story, actually, let's go in case you're not familiar with it, I guess you can skip ahead 5 minutes if you are super familiar with the story of Oedipus. So you got good old, I'm just going to go Oedip here. So he's born, there's a prophecy on his head that says he's going to end up killing his father and marrying his mother. Absolutely terrible. So his father and mother end up hearing about it, so they exile him. They're in Thebes, by the way. So they exile him over here to who knows what country. So here he ends up being raised and ends up becoming a young adult, and then learns that he goes to an oracle over here, and then he ends up learning that he's destined to marry his mother and kill his father. And since he doesn't want to do that to his adoptive father and mother, he flees. And of course, he flees right back to Thebes. And when he's going towards Thebes, he ends up finding a guy and he ends up offing him. Spoiler alert, that's his father. So he's already dead. And then he comes across the Sphinx, and the Sphinx is plaguing Thebes. And he ends up managing to dispatch Thebes, or dispatch the Sphinx and save Thebes. And the Sphinx presents a riddle. I won't talk about the riddle right here, but that's kind of the aspect of it, and that tends to be the most famous thing. So it's kind of cute because if we consider the charioteer to be like Oedipus, he actually he's fulfilled the prophecy effectively, because he's killed the mother and married the father. In these 2 characters, he's merged them, which is also, I think, very symbolic in the lingam as well. So here the charioteer has managed to do what Oedipus couldn't, effectively. He's managed to he's killed the mother, married the father, without actually killing his mother, or killing his father and marrying his mother. Also, I would like to point out, going back to the sun card, cutely enough, if you metaphorically, so this is going back into the religious bit, if you consider Christ to be in the Trinity, he is also the Father, right? And if you consider the mother of the church, the mother Mary to be kind of the foundation of the church, as many people do, hopefully some people see where I'm going with this, you basically have Christ or God, who kills himself on the cross, so kills the Father, and then ends up becoming merged or married metaphorically to the church. So he kills the father and marries the mother. So same deal. And it actually goes a little bit further than that as well, which is there wasn't just the single prophecy for Oedipus that he would kill his father and marry his mother. There's also a second prophecy that the death of Oedipus would be a blessing to whatever land he happened to die on. And that's the same sort of thing with the Christ figure. It's his death is a blessing. So you have the very similar symbolism between the two. So with all of those things in similar, and hopefully you guys followed all of that between Tov and Plato, went all over the place, but hopefully that was like the mind-blowing moment. It's like, oh, holy cow, these 2 cards really are very, very interrelated. They are kind of crossing that same concept again that we talked about of Tov here, where it's success and being able to overcome and have victory in the whatever future world beyond the point. Hopefully that's the mind-blowing moment, and that will be the reason you're sharing this video and making it all the way to whatever minute mark we're at, 24 minutes on the dot. So with all that similar, what is the difference then? So how do we differentiate the meaning of these 2 cards if all of that meaning is sort of lumped into both of them? So I would argue here with the charioteer, you have the blending of the 2, and you have effectively not just the blending, but things put in sort of a place. So you have the proper place for the masculine energy that's blended, and you have the proper place for I think that might be the feminine energy, and the proper place for the masculine energy that's blended. I don't know why I feel like the masculine should be more represented by black, as a side note, but people feel free to disagree with me. Also, if you think about black and white being kind of critical colors in the relationship between the two, there's not a lot of black here on the sun card. Or there is a lot of black, but it's actually hidden. So in Egyptian concepts, you had the concept of Kemet, which is this mud that would form after the Nile flooded. So the Nile would flood, it'd drop some new thick, rich dirt, out of which new things would grow. So here we've got, excuse me, sunflowers growing in the background. So theoretically, you could say that the black is hidden behind this wall. It's walled off and also sort of in a proper place, but it's more in a hidden, it's forgotten about almost, or it's the soil for which the things are being grown. So here it's like the momentum, here it's like the soil, right? And here everything's already grown. So it's not, okay, we need to seize and get going, or grab these two forces and have them guide us forward in a way that's balanced. Here that's already happened. First of all. So the sun is a little bit more future looking, while the chariot's a little bit more present and near future looking, if that makes any sense. Also, I want to make an argument with the sun that you could also say that you could say the horse is masculine, in which instance I like the interpretation that you have the masculine aspect raising up the feminine aspect. So so rather than having a merger, you have the one lifting the other up, which would make sense in a concept of the sun kind of pointing to the future as well and being a revolution, because it would almost be symbolic of the next generation. It's of the children. In fact, if you think about the birth of a child, it's a very happy moment. It's a very sun-like moment. And so in essence, the sun then, if you're having, or you could look at it as well, if you want to go into matriarchy along the way, it's like finally women being allowed to rule as potentially they should be around the globe, rather than being oppressed. And at which point you have that sort of revolution, you have the new bright sunny day, sort of things like that. I might alienate some people with that final concept, but I'm going to leave it out there. In the meantime, again, share this with communities of like-minded individuals, join the conversation. In fact, that would be the biggest thing. If you can leave a comment, talk about what you enjoyed of this, what you did not enjoy about this. I will try to improve the process as I have time and are able to do so. Hopefully you enjoyed this in particular. And I guess I should also mention, I did write that book in the background, which I think I pasted at some point. Tarot, if you search for Tarot Reflective Journey, Tsade Tarot, it'll come up. It's more or less something like this, except helps you learn the major arcana. And as far as the mirroring, is a little bit less secretive, a little bit more direct, in a kind of a clear, straightforward manner. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I really appreciate all the time you spent up to this stage, almost half an hour on this video. Are you kidding me? Hopefully this goes off well. We'll try to improve the process as we go. Thank you guys.